Alcohol is the most widely used legal drug in Australia today. It's been estimated that over 13 million Australians over the age of 14 consume alcohol every year, over 6.5 million every week, and almost 1.5 million Australians consume alcohol daily. Even more disturbing is the fact that recent research has revealed that almost 500,000 Australian children live in situations where they're exposed to adults binge drinking. That is, drinking 5 or more standard drinks in one sitting for men, or 4 or more for women.
I reckon that teenagers drink for like heaps and heaps and heaps of different reasons. Like some of it can be peer pressure, other like stuff it can just be like that's just what they're brought up with, and it's just basically in Australia it's the way of life.
I think that one of the reasons that teenagers drink to get drunk is because of peer pressure, because our friends tell us that it's cool and it's the right thing to do at our age, and instead of us listening to ourselves and thinking for ourselves, we listen to them.
I guess another reason that teenagers choose to drink to excess at parties is because it gives them an excuse to be someone different, or do something that they maybe wouldn't usually do, or maybe people would say you're more fun when you're drunk, and so it sort of encourages them to drink more and more every party.
I think that today's society is promoted to that to have fun is to get drunk.
I think one of the reasons some teenagers tend to drink to excess is the whole idea, especially in today's society, is it's seen as a bit of a rite of passage. Like, especially with Australia, it's like you have a kid, right, and he grows up, and if you have your dad drinking, you get very brazen, you get used to it. And then if your older brother starts to drink, and that, it's become seen as just something you do when you get older. It's not even a question of if you drink, it's just, really a question of when.
So how does alcohol work? Well, if you've ever seen someone who has had too much to drink, you'll recognise that alcohol is a drug that has widespread effects on the body. And whilst many of the effects are the same regardless of the person, for example, we know the more alcohol a person consumes, their speech will be affected, as well as their ability to walk straight. But other effects can actually vary from person to person. For example, one person might become the life of the party and all they want to do is hug and be friendly toward others. Other people, if they've had too much to drink, might become aggressive and all they want to do is fight. Still others might become depressed and teary and all they can talk about is the doom and gloom in the world. It basically depends on 3 main factors. Firstly, the amount of alcohol the person has consumed. Secondly, the person's history with alcohol. And thirdly, the person's personality. When a person drinks an alcoholic drink, about 20% of the alcohol is absorbed in the stomach and about 80% is absorbed in the small intestine. And how fast alcohol is absorbed depends basically on 3 factors. Firstly, the concentration of alcohol in the drink. The greater the concentration of alcohol, the faster the absorption. Secondly, the type of drink. Carbonated drinks, those with bubbles, tend to speed up the absorption of alcohol. And thirdly, whether the stomach is full or empty. Food slows down alcohol absorption. After absorption, the alcohol enters the bloodstream and dissolves in the water of the blood. And then the blood then carries the alcohol throughout the body. Now the alcohol from the blood enters and dissolves in the water inside each tissue of the body, except for fatty tissue where it can't dissolve. And once inside these tissues, alcohol begins to exert its effects on the body. And the higher your blood alcohol concentration is, the greater effect the alcohol will be having on your system. And what a lot of people appear to be unaware of is that their blood alcohol concentration can increase significantly within 20 minutes of having that first drink. As a diver, one of the things that we need to prepare for when diving at depths deeper than, say, approximately 30 metres is a condition called nitrogen narcosis. As increasing amounts of nitrogen begin to dissolve in the blood, the nervous system begins to slow down and the person begins to feel lightheaded and increasingly intoxicated. And as with alcohol, the diver's judgment can be severely affected as well as their behaviour. For example, one diver, whilst experiencing nitrogen narcosis, was seen by his dive buddy to take the regulator out of his mouth, the thing that he breathes through, and try to give it to a passing fish. So just like nitrogen narcosis can affect the behaviour and the judgment of a diver, the same can be said for alcohol intoxication. So what are some of the dangers teenagers can experience when binge drinking and becoming intoxicated?
One of my own friends, like I was saying before, she drank too much at a party, and she ended up getting in the back of a ute with this boy, and there are gaps in her knowledge of what actually happened that night. And after the event, she was totally traumatized by the experience because she couldn't remember what happened.
My friends, I'm friends with all the top guys. I could name names, but I won't because it's not the done thing. But every single guy that's got to my level and more, that have gone into the career where they're starting to get money, they're starting to get all this stuff that's coming to them, and then they're like, oh, what do? I'm getting all this stuff. And then they start drinking. And as soon as they start drinking, every single one of them has faded out of the scene. The only guys that are left, and this is probably a good thing for me, but because I don't drink and I've pursued it, I've risen above every single one of the guys that have started partying. And the second they started and got heavier and heavier and heavier, that was like completely, you could almost weigh up the amount of times they've gone out to the amount they've dropped out of the scene. And to be on top and to stay on top, you have to be focused and committed. And drinking is just something that's going to just steadily decline you and just slide you down the hill.
As a person consumes more and more alcohol, they begin to move through basically 6 stages of intoxication. Even in this first stage, frequently referred to as euphoria, the person will begin to have difficulty concentrating, and they may become quite talkative, even those people who are usually quiet. In addition, people's inhibitions will also begin to be lowered, and they may begin to act in ways that they normally wouldn't if they didn't have alcohol in their system. In the second stage, often referred to as excitement, we start to see the beginnings of erratic behaviour. People begin to do things, sometimes crazy things, without recognising the potential dangers of their behaviour. In addition, the person's ability to concentrate also begins to be significantly impaired, as well as their coordination and their reaction time. And these factors become particularly dangerous if the person at that point tries to drive a motor vehicle. During the excitement stage, some people may even begin to openly flirt with others or agree to behaviours that they normally wouldn't agree to if they didn't have alcohol in their system. In the third stage, frequently referred to as confusion, the person begins to have significant difficulty walking straight, their speech becomes noticeably slurred, and their vision is also significantly impaired. But also, the person's emotions become greatly amplified. For example, the person may begin to get very loud regardless of who is around, including the police. Or the person who earlier may have been upset because of a relationship breakup may begin to cry as if their whole world has come to an end. Sadly, during the confusion stage, some people engage in the spectrum of sexual behaviour without even fully realising what they are doing. If a person's blood alcohol concentration continues to rise, they move into the fourth stage of intoxication, called stupor. At this point, the person will not be able to walk without assistance, or in some cases may not even be able to stand up. In addition, the person will begin to slip in and out of consciousness, so you can imagine at that point they become extremely vulnerable to the behaviours of those around them, particularly because they may not be aware of who is with them at that point, or even where they are. Should a person's blood alcohol concentration continue to rise, they move into the fifth stage of intoxication, called coma. Typically at this point the person will pass out and their body temperature will become noticeably low. In addition, the person's pulse rate will slow down significantly and the person's breathing will become quite shallow. Now we need to recognise at this point the person is in grave danger, because if a person's blood alcohol concentration increases past approximately 0.45, the person is at risk of moving into the sixth stage of intoxication, which is death by respiratory arrest.